Jermaine's life and identity. Born on April 23, 1995. Jermain Austin Charlo entered the world as a member of the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes of the Flathead Reservation. Her early years were shaped by the strength of her culture, traditions, and the deep ties of family and community. She carried with her a strong sense of identity, grounded in the heritage of her people, while navigating the everyday challenges of adolescence and young adulthood. At the time of her disappearance, Jermaine was 23 years old. She stood 5 feet 9 inches tall with a slender frame of 130 pounds. More importantly, she was the devoted mother of 2 young sons, Thomas and Jake. Her children were at the center of her life, and those closest to her describe her as fiercely resilient, endlessly loving, and determined to provide them with the best possible upbringing. Jermaine's personality was layered with warmth, creativity, and determination. Friends and family recall her playful humor, her sharp wit, and her ability to find light even during difficult times. Online, she extended these qualities into the digital space, using blogs and videos to share pieces of her daily life. In these posts, she revealed both the unfiltered authenticity of her voice and her imaginative, artistic side. Dreams of higher education lingered in her plans. She had aspirations to pursue studies in the arts, blending her creativity with her cultural roots. To those around her, she was not just a young mother, but a vibrant young woman with ambition, hope, and an undeniable presence. This portrayal reminds us that Jermaine is more than a missing person. She is a daughter, a mother, and a member of a proud tribal community, whose absence leaves an irreplaceable void. The night of June 15th to 16th, 2018. On the evening of June 15th, 2018, Jermain Austin Charlo stepped into the busy nightlife of Missoula, Montana. She visited several bars that night, including one known as the Dark Horse. As the evening continued, her path crossed with her ex-boyfriend, Michael Difference. Later, surveillance footage captured the two together in the alley behind the Badlander. They were seen interacting with groups of people, socializing casually as the night stretched closer to midnight. These images of Jermaine, walking beside Difference, remain the last confirmed visual record of her alive. What unfolded after those moments has never been fully clarified. Difference would later provide differing accounts of where he went and what he did after leaving downtown with Jermaine. To her family, he explained that he dropped her off at the Orange Street food farm. According to him, Jermaine had plans to meet a supposed friend named Cassidy who lived nearby. Yet, when questioned by Detective Guy Baker, his account shifted. In that version, he said he left her in a neighborhood nearly 8 blocks away from the store. This inconsistency proved critical. Investigators soon uncovered that Cassidy did not exist. However, evidence revealed that Jermaine had been in contact with a man named Jacob who lived in the neighborhood where Difference claimed to have dropped her. Jacob was out of state at the time, but later confirmed he had exchanged messages with Jermaine by text on that very night. This revelation added another thread to an already tangled timeline. Cell phone records deepened the uncertainty. Data showed that both Jermaine's and Difference's phones pinged off a tower located approximately 3 miles from the Difference family residence. At around 2 a.m., the significance of this finding was difficult to ignore. If Difference had indeed dropped Jermaine elsewhere, why were both of their phones connecting to the same tower near his home hours later? The contradictions in his statements, the false story of Cassidy, and the troubling phone data created a patchwork of unanswered questions. Each detail hinted at gaps between what was claimed and what could be proven. The timeline of Jermaine's last known movements became marked by confusion and suspicion. In the end, the night of June 15th into June 16th left investigators and her loved ones with fragments of information but no resolution. The inconsistencies surrounding Michael Difference's accounts formed the heart of the mystery. Casting doubt on every version of events and leaving Jermaine's disappearance shrouded in uncertainty. The family's alarm and early response in June, when Jermain Charlo's grandmother realized she had not heard from her granddaughter, worry set in quickly. Jermaine was known for staying in constant contact with her loved ones. She never went anywhere without her phone, and silence from her was unusual. Alarmed, the grandmother began reaching out to other family members to see if anyone had spoken to her. The answer was always the same. No one had heard from Jermaine. Her aunts, Valinda Morv and Danny Matt, took immediate action. They began calling hospitals across Missoula hoping Jermaine might have checked in somewhere. When that led to nothing, they contacted local shelters and other facilities, widening the search for any sign of her. Every inquiry ended with the same result: no one had seen her. As hours turned into days, the family's concern deepened. By June 18th, 2 days after Jermaine was last seen, the family decided they could not wait any longer. They reached out to the Missoula Police Department to report her missing. However, the initial response was far from urgent. Officers did not immediately treat the case with the seriousness the family believed it deserved. To them, the lack of urgency was devastating. On June 20th, Valinda formally filed a missing persons report and met with the detective assigned to Jermaine's case. While this provided a sense of relief that official steps were finally being taken, the slow pace in those first days had already left the family feeling frustrated and unsupported. Despite this, they refused to remain passive. They organized. Volunteers spread awareness and made certain Jermaine's disappearance could not be ignored. Their persistence ensured attention stayed on the case, highlighting both their determination and the challenges Indigenous families often face when seeking help for missing loved ones. Expanding searches and law enforcement involvement. Within 10 days of Jermain Charlo's disappearance, the case was reassigned to Detective Guy Baker. His experience in handling difficult investigations made him immediately aware of the seriousness of her situation. While many missing persons cases resolved quickly with the individual located safe, Jermaine's absence persisted. Baker recognized early that her disappearance was among the small percentage that remain unresolved, and he approached the investigation with the urgency such cases demand. The search area expanded rapidly beyond Missoula into the Flathead Reservation and surrounding regions. Volunteers, family members, and organized search teams joined forces with law enforcement. Grid searches were carried out across rugged terrain, including mountainsides, riverbanks, and dense forests. The scale of the effort was massive, with teams navigating steep trails, covering remote areas, and examining waterways. Search dogs were deployed to follow potential scents, but no conclusive evidence surfaced. The vastness of the region created challenges, as each new search location revealed how difficult it was to locate even the smallest trace of a missing person. Despite the absence of physical evidence, the family's determination never wavered. They continued working alongside volunteers, ensuring every possible lead was followed. Law enforcement, too, remained committed, treating Jermaine's disappearance as more than a voluntary absence. Baker emphasized the need to view her case as potentially criminal, pushing against the tendency for missing Indigenous women to be overlooked or prematurely dismissed. By July 2018, investigators explored leads suggesting trafficking. Rumors circulated that out-of-state individuals had been in Missoula attempting to purchase a girl. While this theory was eventually ruled out, it demonstrated both the dangers faced by Indigenous women and the vulnerabilities within their communities. The very suggestion underscored the broader risks that many families feared and highlighted why urgency in such cases was critical. The difficulty of the search weighed heavily on everyone involved. Covering thousands of acres without finding answers was exhausting, yet the scale reflected the seriousness of the effort. Every sweep, every canine deployment, and every volunteer call reinforced the depth of commitment from both the family and law enforcement. Still, as days turned into weeks, the absence of evidence created a chilling reality. Cases like Jermaine's can grow cold quickly when no immediate clues are found. Yet Baker and the investigative team persisted. Their willingness to continue despite setbacks made clear that Jermaine's case would not be dismissed as just another disappearance. Instead, it remained firmly in the realm of an active investigation, marked by determination, community involvement, and an unyielding pursuit of answers. Surveillance. Footage and contradictions. On the night of June 15, 2018. Surveillance cameras captured Jermain Charlo in the alley behind the Badlander, walking with Michael DeFrance. These grainy images remain the last verified sighting of her alive. The footage shows Jermaine slightly ahead, her posture suggesting distance, while different trails closed behind. Observers, including her family, described his movements as impatient or frustrated, contrasting with her detached stride. For them, the video revealed tension that words could not. The significance of the footage extended beyond being a visual record. It represented the final moment law enforcement could confirm Jermaine's presence. In cases where little evidence exists, even a few seconds of video become central to understanding what may have occurred. Investigators studied the frames closely, analyzing body language and sequencing, aware that such details could provide subtle but critical context. Attention then turned to Difference's statements. When questioned, his accounts of where he had dropped Jermaine off varied. At times, he claimed it was near the Orange Street food farm, while in other versions he mentioned another neighborhood. These inconsistencies complicated the timeline, leaving investigators with unanswered questions about his reliability. The contradictions placed further weight on the surveillance footage, which at least offered certainty about their location at a specific moment. Adding complexity were Jermaine's text messages to Jacob, her boyfriend. Despite being away that night, her messages indicated she may have intended to return to his residence. Detail conflicted with Difference's shifting explanations, deepening the uncertainty surrounding her last known movements. For law enforcement, the footage and conflicting narratives positioned Difference as a central figure in the investigation. Though never publicly named a suspect, his role remained critical. For Jermaine's family, those images became a haunting final glimpse of her life. Cell phone evidence and Evero Hill phone records quickly became a central focus in the investigation into Jermain Charlo's disappearance. Data revealed her cell phone remained active for hours after she was last seen on June 16, 2018. Between 2 a.m. and 10 a.m., signals from the device connected to cell towers north of Missoula, with the strongest activity traced to the Evero Hill area on the Flathead Reservation. For investigators, these signals extended the timeline of her case far beyond the moment she was captured on surveillance footage outside the Badlander. Evero Hill is a rugged, heavily forested landscape characterized by steep terrain, dense tree cover, and remote backroads. It is also an area known to be familiar to Michael Difference, who lived nearby and spent significant time in its surroundings. Search teams, including law enforcement officers, volunteers, and specialized units, scoured the region extensively. Despite repeated efforts, no trace of Jermaine was discovered. The absence of physical evidence made the phone data all the more crucial. Difference's statements about the device added further complexity. Initially, he told investigators that Jermaine still had her phone when he dropped her off. Later, he changed his account, admitting that he had kept possession of it. According to his revised statement, he attempted to unlock the phone, but was unsuccessful. This contradiction raised additional concerns about his involvement and reliability. The narrative shifted again when Difference made an even more startling claim. He told police that while working as a truck driver, he had discarded the phone in Idaho. Specifically, he indicated mile marker 94 on Highway 12 as the location. Search efforts were directed there, but despite combing the area, the phone was never recovered. Its absence deprived investigators of potential evidence such as messages, call logs, or geolocation data that might have clarified Jermaine's movements or associations. For investigators, the conflicting stories and shifting details surrounding the phone became one of the most puzzling elements of the case. The signals connected her disappearance to Evero Hill, a place with a direct link to Difference's life, yet the device's ultimate fate remained obscured by his admissions. Each explanation further complicated the investigation, leaving critical questions unresolved. The phone evidence, though incomplete, deepened suspicions and provided one of the few tangible leads after Jermaine vanished. Its unanswered questions underscored the limitations investigators faced without access to the device itself. To this day, the lost phone represents both a critical clue and one of the case's greatest mysteries, symbolizing how close investigators came to answers and how far they remained from resolution. Domestic violence. History. Jermain Charlo's relationship with Michael Difference began in 2010, when they were both teenagers. At first, their bond appeared typical for young partners, but troubling patterns soon emerged. By 2013, when Jermaine was just shy of her 18th birthday, those concerns became undeniable. That year, Difference admitted to physically assaulting her, an incident formally documented in court records. He pleaded guilty to partner family member assault, a charge that reflected the seriousness of his actions. Despite the conviction, he avoided jail time, receiving a more lenient outcome than many expected, rather than ending their connection. The relationship continued in the years that followed. Together, they had 2 sons, creating ties that bound them even more closely. Yet family members and close friends observed an ongoing cycle. Episodes of violence, temporary separations, and repeated reconciliations. Each stage seemed to return to the same pattern of volatility and conflict. The persistence of this cycle weighed heavily on Jermaine. Even as she tried to balance her responsibilities as a mother, by 2017, the relationship had finally fractured beyond repair. Jermaine and Difference separated permanently, but their disputes did not end with the breakup. Custody of their children became the central issue, leading to a legal battle that deepened existing tensions. Ultimately, the court granted Difference primary custody, allowing Jermaine visitation rights. For Jermaine's family, this outcome was difficult, and it placed additional strain on her relationship with Difference. In the months leading up to her disappearance, friends and relatives remembered Jermaine expressing fear for her safety. Those closest to her recognized how the history of control, physical abuse, and contentious custody disputes shaped her life. For investigators, this history became an essential factor, highlighting why suspicion fell so strongly on Difference. The search for justice in the MMIW crisis. Jermain Charlo's disappearance did not exist in isolation. From the earliest days of the investigation, her absence was connected to a much broader crisis. The epidemic of missing and murdered Indigenous women, often referred to as MMIW, in Montana, where Indigenous people represent a small fraction of the state's total population, they account for a disproportionately high number of missing person cases. Jermaine's case became emblematic of this imbalance, symbolizing the urgency of an issue that has lingered far too long without adequate resolution. Her image spread across the state in countless ways. Billboards carried her face along busy highways, while community campaigns placed her photograph in public spaces where passersby could not avoid the haunting reminder. At awareness events, Jermaine's story was repeatedly told, ensuring she would not fade from public consciousness. For her family, this visibility served as both advocacy and testimonia, means of fighting for her while fighting for others still missing. Artists and activists joined these efforts, using creative expression to amplify the crisis. Jen Murphy, a photographer, turned her lens toward Jermaine's case, producing work that humanized the tragedy, while also pointing to the larger systemic problem. Public art frequently invoked the red handprint, now widely recognized as a symbol. For silenced Indigenous women, each visual reminder reinforced the urgency behind the calls for justice, connecting Jermaine's story to a network of voices demanding change. Her family, meanwhile, remained tireless. They organized searches in the wilderness, coordinated community gatherings, and spoke at events focused on MMIW. Their determination was not only to keep Jermaine's name alive, but also to ensure her case contributed to long-term change. For them, silence was never an option. Their public advocacy stood as a counterweight to the void created by her disappearance. Even law enforcement acknowledged the broader implications of the case. Officials recognized that disparities existed in how missing Indigenous women were treated compared to missing white women. National conversations only amplified this awareness, especially after the disappearance of Gabby Petito drew massive coverage. Jermaine's case, in contrast, illustrated how Indigenous families often struggle to gain similar attention, even as their numbers reflected a larger crisis. Ultimately, Jermain Charlo's disappearance highlighted a systemic issue extending beyond one family or one community. Her story underscored how race and identity could shape the urgency of investigations and the visibility of victims. As her case continues unresolved, it fuels ongoing advocacy, pressing for reform in how missing Indigenous people are sought, represented, and remembered. Jermaine's name has become part of a movement demanding that justice be pursued with equity, consistency, and care. Lingering questions and legacy. Jermain Charlo's disappearance leaves behind questions that remain as heavy today as they were on the night she vanished. Why did she disappear after leaving downtown Missoula with Michael DeFriends? What occurred in the hours following their departure, and why did her phone records trace activity near Evero Hill? Even more troubling, what became of the device once it was discarded, and why have those digital traces failed to provide conclusive answers? With no arrests made, no suspects confirmed, and no recovery of her remains, the case continues to hang unresolved. For her family, this absence of clarity represents not only the loss of a loved one, but the torment of uncertainty. Time has moved forward, but the urgency for truth has not diminished. Each passing day without resolution deepens the wound and sharpens the demand for answers. Her grandmother's message, written as both a plea and a declaration of love, underscores this determination. She wrote of faith, hope, and the unyielding belief that Jermain would never abandon her family. Central to this conviction is the role of Jermain as a mother. Those closest to her remain steadfast that she would not have willingly left her sons behind, making her disappearance all the more devastating and confounding. Jermain's story is more than a personal tragedy. It has become a symbol for the larger crisis facing Indigenous communities. The silence surrounding her fate mirrors the silence endured by countless other families, left searching for justice in systems that too often fail them. Even as the questions remain unanswered, Jermain Charlo's legacy endures. She is remembered as a daughter, a mother, and a vital part of her community. Today, her name continues to echo across Montana and beyond, demanding truth, recognition, and justice.